Ray Kroc was 52 years old when he finally took control of McDonald's. Before that, he was selling milkshake machines, living on commissions, with no safety net, and no guarantee anything would work. By most standards, he was late and far behind where he thought he should be. History is full of people who restarted from zero, or less, and later built real wealth, not because they got lucky, because when everything was stripped away, they focused on what actually mattered. Here's the part most stories skip. Starting with nothing isn't the crisis. Lacking structure is. People don't stay stuck because the economy slows, markets fall, or they started late. They stay stuck because they keep winging it, hoping income, motivation, or timing will bail them out. That's why people who've rebuilt from the bottom sound so similar. Once you've lost everything, you don't need theories or hype. You need a plan that works in good times and bad, whether you're 25 or 55, confident or completely worn down. I'm Alex. Today, we'll walk through a clear, step-by-step framework for starting over from zero, built around numbers, behavior, income, and systems that quietly compound over time, so you can see how money actually moves, where progress leaks, and how to rebuild in a way that becomes more stable each year instead of more fragile. Let's begin with a truth that surprises most people. Starting with nothing is often safer than starting with just enough. Why starting with nothing isn't the problem. Starting with zero feels like failure, but structurally, it's a clean slate. When there's no savings to protect and no lifestyle to defend, decisions get simpler. You can change jobs without worrying about sunk costs. You can cut expenses fast because there's nothing expensive to unwind. That flexibility is rare and powerful. Look at how resets actually happen in real life. After layoffs, people often find better paying roles within a year, not because the market suddenly became kind, but because urgency forced sharper choices. No upgrades, no image management, just income versus expenses every week. That pressure creates speed. Contrast that with someone earning well but stretched thin. Car payments, subscriptions, a house sized for a future that hasn't arrived. On paper, they're ahead, but practically they can't move. Zero feels scary, but overextension is what traps people. There's another advantage most people miss. Mistakes are cheaper. If you try something and it fails, the downside is limited. There's no portfolio to wreck, no lifestyle crash. You learn faster because feedback is immediate. You adjust, you move again. That's how momentum starts. The real risk isn't having nothing. It's standing still because you're ashamed of where you are. Once that drops, progress gets practical. Numbers get clearer. Choices get cleaner. And here's the part most people don't expect. Starting from nothing often shortens the distance to stability because there's nothing in the way. That's why zero isn't the problem. Hesitation is. Step 1. Face the numbers you've been avoiding. Facing the numbers is uncomfortable, but it's the moment everything becomes workable. Most people know they're behind, but they don't know how behind. That vagueness is what keeps them stuck. Once you put actual numbers on paper, fear turns into math, and math can be solved. Start with 4 numbers only. What comes in after taxes? What goes out each month? What you own? What you owe? No spreadsheets required. A legal pad works. When people finally add it up, the result is often worse than expected, and that's exactly why things begin to change. Clarity creates urgency without panic. Here's the part many miss. Income alone tells you nothing. 2 households can earn the same amount, yet one moves forward while the other stays trapped. The difference is the gap, income minus expenses. That gap is your leverage. No gap, no progress, no matter how impressive the paycheck looks. This is why high earners still feel broke. A 6-figure income with 6-figure spending leaves zero room to breathe. The moment income stops, everything collapses. That's not wealth, that's fragility. Once you track these numbers regularly, something shifts. Spending decisions slow down. Trade-offs become obvious. You stop guessing and start choosing. And here's the quiet benefit. When money stays top of mind, it stops feeling scary. You don't avoid it anymore. Face the numbers once, and you gain something rare. A clear starting point. From there, every move has direction. The gap that actually determines your future. The number that decides your financial future isn't your salary. It's the gap. Income minus expenses. That's the space where everything happens, or doesn't. You can earn a lot and still go nowhere if that gap is zero. You see this all the time. Someone making strong money, but every raise disappears into a bigger house, a new car, or just a few subscriptions that quietly add up. On paper, income is rising. In reality, nothing is improving. no buffer, no options. One missed paycheck, and stress hits fast. Now compare that to someone earning less, but living below their means. They might not feel rich, but they have breathing room. That gap pays down debt. It builds cash. It buys assets. Slowly at first, then faster. This is how momentum forms. The gap does two things at once. Now, it reduces liabilities when you use it to pay off debt, and it increases assets when you save or invest it. Both move your net worth in the right direction. Assets minus liabilities. That's the real scorecard. Not income, not job title. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People don't fail because they don't make enough. They fail because they never protect the gap. Every lifestyle upgrade attacks it. Every "I deserve this" decision shrinks it. Once you understand the gap, money stops feeling mysterious. You stop chasing more income blindly and start defending the space that actually builds security. Protect the gap, and your future changes. Ignore it, and nothing else matters. Step 2. Change the inputs before changing the outcome. Your current financial results didn't happen randomly. They're the output of years of inputs. What you learned, who you listened to, and the habits you repeated without thinking. If nothing changes there, nothing changes in your bank account either. Most people keep consuming the same inputs every day. Social feeds designed to make spending feel normal. Friends who complain about money but never adjust their behavior. Headlines that amplify fear. Then they wonder why progress feels impossible. The math never had a chance. Here's the shift. The version of you with real savings, multiple income streams, or meaningful investments thinks differently. Not magically, systematically. New skills, new beliefs, new reference points. That change starts with what you let into your head. Actually, this is why passive learning matters. Listening while commuting, while cooking, while walking, replacing noise with ideas about how money actually works. Over time, your default reactions change. Spending slows, opportunities become visible, you start asking better questions. And here's the contrast most people miss. You don't need motivation first. Motivation follows clarity. Once your inputs improve, behavior adjusts automatically. You stop impulse buying without forcing discipline. You start planning without stress. Protecting your attention is a financial skill. The people who build wealth aren't smarter. They're just selective. Change the inputs, and the outcome follows. Quietly at first, then all at once. Step 3. Escape survival mode with a short reset. Survival mode keeps people busy but stuck. Bills get paid, stress stays high, and nothing builds. That's why the first real move isn't investing or side hustles. It's a short, aggressive reset to create breathing room. This step is simple but uncomfortable. For 10 days, spending drops to essentials only. No eating out, no subscriptions you don't need to function. Groceries become basic but efficient. What most people spend on one lunch can cover a full day of meals when attention is applied. The goal isn't deprivation, it's speed. Here's what happens fast. Cash accumulates. A few hundred turns into a few thousand sooner than expected. That first buffer changes behavior immediately. You stop making decisions out of panic. You start choosing. There's also a psychological shift. Cutting back briefly exposes how much spending is habit, not happiness. After a reset, many people re-add only half of what they cut, and don't miss the rest. The gap widens without effort. Short resets work because they have an end. You're not becoming frugal forever. You're buying clarity. The same way intense training works better than vague goals, focused constraints create results. When survival mode breaks, everything else becomes possible. Debt feels manageable. Planning stretches beyond next month. And here's the quiet payoff. Once you prove you can create cash on demand, fear loses its grip. Why early wins matter more than big goals. Big financial goals sound impressive, but they don't change behavior. Early wins do. When progress feels distant, people quit quietly. When progress shows up fast, momentum takes over. That's why small wins are powerful. Saving your first few thousand does more than improve your balance. It changes how you see yourself. You stop feeling bad with money and start acting like someone in control. That identity shift is hard to reverse. You see this pattern everywhere. People who pay off one credit card suddenly accelerate. Not because the math changed, but because confidence did. Stress drops. Decisions slow down. Planning becomes possible. Personal finance is behavioral long before it's mathematical. Early wins also recalibrate spending. After a short reset, people notice which expenses actually matter. A $1,000 lifestyle trimmed to $100 of real enjoyment feels freeing, not restrictive. The gap grows without adding pressure. Here's the contrast. Chasing a huge number with no quick feedback creates fatigue. Hitting small milestones creates energy. One approach drains willpower, the other builds it. This is why the first year isn't about perfection. It's about stacking proof. Proof that you can save, proof that you can adjust, proof that money responds when you do. Once that belief locks in, bigger goals stop feeling abstract. They feel inevitable. Step 4. Push income before you touch investing. Cutting expenses creates space, but income creates force. There's a ceiling to how much you can cut. There's almost no ceiling on how much you can earn. That's why income comes before investing. This step is about focus, not 5 side hustles. One clear way to sell your time at a higher rate. The fastest income jumps don't come from working longer hours. They come from pricing skills differently. A freelancer raising rates, a specialist switching roles, someone monetizing a skill they already use at work. Think about real shifts people make. A general admin moves into project coordination. A hobby photographer starts booking higher-end shoots. A clear communicator helps businesses with systems or automation. Same effort, higher pay. Here's the part most people skip. You don't need passion first. You need demand. When starting from zero, the priority is what pays well. Enjoyment grows when progress does. Income expansion changes the math fast. More gap, faster debt payoff, larger savings, and suddenly investing becomes meaningful instead of symbolic. The tease most people don't see coming is this. Raising income also changes how you think. Scarcity fades. You stop hoarding. You start allocating. That shift alone puts you ahead of most earners who never escape the paycheck loop. Push income first. Everything else accelerates afterward. Finding the skill the market will actually pay for. Not all skills are equal. Some feel productive, but barely move the needle. Others quietly unlock disproportionate income. The difference is the market, not effort. The fastest way to find a high-value skill is to look at 3 overlaps: what you can do competently, what you don't hate doing repeatedly, and what people already pay for. When all 3 intersect, pricing power appears. Miss one, and income stalls. This is why many hobbies stay hobbies. They may be enjoyable, but demand is thin or pricing is capped. When starting from zero, emotion can't lead. Economics has to. You can love something and still keep it off your income plan. Combining skills is where earnings jump. Technical ability plus people skills. Clear communication plus complex topics. Execution plus encouragement. And this is how ordinary abilities become uncommon. 2 average skills together often beat 1 exceptional one. Here's the contrast most people miss. Being good isn't enough. Being understandable and useful is what sells. The market rewards clarity more than talent. Once the right skill is identified, confidence rises fast. Selling your time feels fair instead of forced. Rates increase naturally. And here's the quiet payoff. When income is tied to a skill instead of a job title, you regain control. That control compounds long before money does. The order most people get wrong and pay for. Most financial plans fail not because of effort, but because of sequence. People invest before they're stable. They chase returns while one surprise expense can knock them over. That order creates stress instead of progress. Stability comes first. Cash beats optimism. Before worrying about the market, there needs to be a real buffer. Enough money set aside to cover several months of basic living costs, rent or mortgage, utilities, food, nothing fancy, just survival covered. Here's why order matters. Without a buffer, every dip feels like a crisis. Job changes become impossible. Good opportunities get passed up because cash is tight. Even smart investments get sold at the worst time out of fear. Debt fits into this sequence too. High interest balances drain the gap you worked hard to build. Now paying them down isn't exciting, but it frees future income permanently. That's a guaranteed return most people ignore. You'll hear advice telling you to always stay invested. That advice assumes stability already exists. Without it, investing feels like gambling. With it, investing feels boring, and that's exactly what you want. Get the order right, and stress drops before returns rise. That's the quiet advantage. When others panic, you can wait. When opportunities appear, you're ready. Sequence creates resilience, and resilience creates wealth. Step 6. Invest where the returns are fastest. The highest return investment early on isn't the stock market. It's your earning power. When amounts are small, market gains feel slow. Skill upgrades, on the other hand, change income immediately. Think in simple math. Investing $1,000 in the market might add a few hundred over time. Investing that same amount into a skill that raises your hourly rate or opens better opportunities can add tens of thousands over a few years. That difference compounds long before stocks do. This is why targeted learning matters. Short programs, practical certifications, tools that translate directly into higher pay, sales training, technical boot camps, project credentials, even better equipment if it lets you charge more. The goal isn't education for its own sake, it's leverage. Here's the trap to avoid: expensive degrees that take years to pay off. Time is a cost, so is debt. If higher income doesn't show up quickly, the return is weak. The quiet advantage of skill investing is optionality. More income gives you choices. You can save faster, pay off debt aggressively, invest meaningfully later. Once earnings rise, investing stops feeling symbolic. It becomes strategic. And that's the shift most people never reach, not because they lack discipline, but because they invested in the wrong order. Step 7. Let compounding do the heavy lifting. Once stability and income are in place, investing finally starts to matter, not because of timing or clever picks, but because consistency takes over. Small, regular contributions turn into something larger than effort alone can produce. Index funds work here because they remove decision fatigue. One purchase spreads risk across hundreds of companies. No stock picking, no constant monitoring, just steady participation. Month after month, money goes in whether the market feels good or uncomfortable. At first, progress looks slow. A few thousand invested throws off very little. That's normal. The shift happens quietly. Contributions stack. Dividends begin to appear. 1 month's growth builds on the last. Eventually, money starts generating money. Here's the contrast people don't expect. Paying for a lunch with investment income feels different than paying with wages. Even small amounts change how work feels. Time feels less pressured. Choices widen. The real power of compounding isn't speed, it's inevitability. When contributions continue and time stays on your side, progress becomes hard to stop. Miss a month, nothing breaks. Stick with it, momentum builds. This is where patience pays. Not through excitement, but through endurance. Most people never reach this phase because they quit early. The ones who do rarely talk about it. But their lives look different. Key takeaways. What actually changes a financial life isn't one big decision. It's the order in which small decisions are made and repeated. Starting from zero isn't a disadvantage when it forces clarity, speed, and focus. The real shift happens when money stops being emotional and starts being measurable. Once the gap is protected, behavior follows. Progress accelerates when effort is sequenced correctly. First comes stability, then income expansion, then skill leverage, and only later does investing begin to matter. That order removes panic from decisions and replaces it with patience. Early wins reshape identity. Higher income reshapes options. Consistent investing reshapes time. The pattern underneath all of this is quiet. Nothing flashy, no shortcuts, just systems that reduce fragility and increase optionality year after year. And if this way of thinking feels different from what you usually hear, that's the point. The next step isn't doing more. It's seeing money as a structure, not a struggle.